Hello, welcome to episode number 9 in my Deconstructing Distortions series. My name is Allie with a.Marie.Speaks. Thanks for checking out my channel. If you are new here, welcome. Like I said, this is episode number 9. And so I have 8 other episodes behind this one that are all similarly set up and follow the same kind of flow, which is focusing on one word that is highly distorted, and that I myself have even come up and worked through distortive, preconceived kind of assumptions, and also really society, plastering sort of one way to look at the word. And so my goal with this series here is to really pull back the layers and to dive into these words and see where the truth really lies. Where can we get the goodness out of it? Where can we find actual tangible working bits for our spiritual journey, for becoming better as people, right? So that's the inspiration sort of behind this series. It's been a while since I've put an episode out, honestly, but this word come into my life in a way that was disruptive, and that to me I had to go and do exactly what I'm talking about, peeling back the layers, looking at the word, doing self-assessment, doing some reflection and contemplation about where my definitions of this word come from and why I'm being so segregatory and choosing and aligning with certain emotions, negative frequencies only, and really kind of brushing aside or being like this, like, no, I don't know, I don't want to look over there at the good potentialities of what this word could really display. I find that a lot, and that's kind of what initiated this series here that I started with. It's a secondary step up from a series I did a few years ago on my old channel. You can find it if you are kind of new to me and you haven't checked out my old channel, which is still on YouTube, but I'm just locked out of it. I don't know how many. I might have 300 videos on that channel. But I have an entire series called Comprehending Consciousness, and I did that maybe 50 or 60 videos, all terms and phrases, single words or phrase, that is this single idea that I thought was overplayed in the mainstream, and that was super catchy, trendy, being really pushed out into the mainstream world for, conscious people and normies alike to have to meet around. And that what would generally happen, is that those who are new to consciousness, new to spiritual journey, new to esoteric information or anything like that, they could get very caught up in the single flashy idea of it and miss the real depth and true working that come with those words. So Comprehending Consciousness was my beginner's level, kind of gearing it towards people who are newly waking up. This time around, what I'm hoping to do with this series and Deconstructing Distortions is to offer up these discussions at more of a student level, this adept, eternal student kind of level that I feel that I'm at, which means basically, I'm trying to put myself on a pedestal above anyone else and in that kind of fashion at all, but just to say that I'm sure there's many of us. I know quite a few people myself, who are like me, who've been exposed to exoteric and esoteric teachings for quite a while, and see a lot of confusion and commonalities that get misdirected and misexplained or misused because of that. And so it's really my hope with this series to clear some ground around those, to have good conversations around it, to offer up my own digging areas and my own sort of results and things like that to those of us who are awakened, so I'm not really going to be breaking it down for newbies, I'm mostly going to be talking about sort of where I'm at my level and what these words have been, how they've been distorted, how I viewed them as distorted even, and now, the work through of peeling back the layers. So welcome with that little brief introduction. As I mentioned already, the term that I'm going to discuss today for episode 9 will be entitlement. Did I say that already? I'm not sure. I might not have even said that, but if you've seen the thumbnail, then you know, because it's right on the thumbnail, right? So the instigation of this word for me, it popped up in A Course in Miracles, which is something that I'm reading through. I've been working on it for a couple of months. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's totally worth checking out, no matter where sort of on the spiritual spectrum you lie. It is a book that is a little bit more, I would say, in the metaphysical Christian sort of genre of writings. So keep that in mind. If that's something you vibe with or not, it could be either or, for you or not. But it is a channeled work, supposedly written through the voice of Jesus, and teaching about how to do miracles, how to be the miracle, the fact that we are granted the power already within us as sons of God, fractal representations of Creator Source consciousness, right? That we are given the miracle, and that we are the miracle, and that actually miracles are not this huge, flashy thing that it's the same thing as Deconstructing Distortions really offers. Actually, A Course in Miracles does for the word miracles, which I won't get caught up on and talk too much about. If you are interested in many different definitions, way to look and work with that word, I would highly suggest checking the book out. And not just the 365-day kind of prompts, the exercises that most people associate with A Course in Miracles, but the student text, the teacher's volume is amazing. It really has so much tangible and malleable information that really helps one to work through the deconstruction of that, and to then rebuild and reassess what real miracles really are, what positive production in it is really. It's a great book about energy systems, really. I find it so in line with light and shadow work and energy alchemy, like I talk about a lot. So if those kind of things are for you, I would check it out. But anyways, this lesson 77, which was a couple of days ago, a week and a half ago for me, it had this phrase. It had the word entitled in it. And it said, I am entitled to miracles. And immediately, this word is a word to me that I hadn't noticed before, but that I noticed straight away was like, wow, I always use that word entitled with a negative connotation. I have used it, and I thought quite a few times back to times of talking to my children, my sons, in, sort of lecture mode about not being entitled and how they're not entitled to X, Y, and Z, and to not present yourself as entitled in that way, because it's demeaning and derogatory in general, not just to those around you who you think that you are sort of imposing on or standing over, or pillaring yourself up above, but it's also, derogatory to yourself in general, because that's not real. It's not a real perspective. It doesn't give you any higher worth than another, because sovereign worth is equal. It's a golden star for everybody. It's nobody gets a different size or two. You just have one, and they're all the same. And the fact that you're alive, breathing, and looking out your eyes with a mind to think says that you've got the star. So it cannot be taken away. It can't be duplicated. It's not something that you do anything to get. In fact, it's something that you rise consciously into or not. And that, in my belief, that's something I always thought, was granted by God, because it's something that we come into this world with, or that we come to through our own sort of navigative ways to get to that epiphany at some point during our living lives. But needless to say, here I am with my own sort of bump up against this word, and in asking to look at it in a different lighting than I normally do. And, immediately I wasn't thinking, I'll make an episode on that or do this series, put it into the series. It was just something that I thought I needed to work through on my own for a little while. But then the last day or two, I thought to myself, that was really needed for me. That was a big knot. That was a big hairy mess that really I had to comb through, and I feel so much better now that I have. So here I am deciding to do an episode on it. So 10 minutes in, let's get down to business, right? It's been long enough. Prelude here. To be entitled to something, initially to me, it felt like taking something that doesn't belong to you. It feels like like I said, this sort of pillared authoritative stance over, like, casting dominion over the area, the space, the material items, whatever it is, and saying, I want that, so it's mine. And using sort of a self-serving intention to lay claim to items, places or people, scenarios or energy that really isn't yours, actually. And I always kind of saw it as sort of a thievery, and I think most of us do, because there is that sort of societal influence somewhere along the lines that has this sort of, if we put this sort of label on, like, bratty children, on spoiled upper class kids or rich kids, wealthy people, aristocracy and all that kind of stuff comes into play, to where it's like, oh, or like, who's entitled to what? It's like a feudal system. You're born into these things and you just get them. Doesn't seem integrated and holistic, really. But what I will say, is yes, sort of, that does have its own standing. And there's a lot of truth behind misappropriation and with this false sense of authority, claiming dominion over things that aren't really theirs. That is a totally viable, direction to put these boots on and walk out in, and to name claim to them, because, it has been used in this kind of way. Certainly. However, although we might have, a big fertile garden of all of these sort of negative uses and implementations and definitions over here, like really growing and blossoming out there and being really, like, paid attention to, watered and grown with care by the gardeners, because their entire negative system depends on the harvest of these, the fact that the garden looks beautiful and desirable to others out there, makes others come there and help, so that the plan and the point of a negative serving system is always more. It's always bringing attention, it's always getting more energy, it's always looking for more adherence to its presentation. And it's, I don't want to take away from, and I don't want to say that that's not a true way to use it, because in fact it does, and it will grow very well in a negative sense over there. But when we pull back and we look at what's actually positive, what's actually promoting, sharing, love, a holistic view, understanding that we're all part of the same society, we're all part of the same world, that we can understand and pull back and see that fertile ground that everybody is sort of focused on and adding to and working with isn't the only plot of land available. It isn't the only space that entitlement can actually grow from and can actually be designated and used as. And if we look at And we could kind of step away from and step out of negative systems and debt usury and the slave master cycles and all of the repetition that tells us it has to be that way, it can't be any other way. If we could just step out of there and refocus ourselves and remember that actually there is plenty of positive operating systems and plenty of processes and functionalities that actually can be positive in alignment and not segregatory, not restricted, but actually allow interaction and exchange from all angles and degrees, and will listen and can hold space for all types of different working definitions and applicable usages of the word. And when we look over at this section and think about entitlement, how we get entitled to something, what we are entitled to, and then what we could never actually be entitled to, we realize that negative planting in the shadowed distortive aspects, as always, is an illusion. It's not real. It has no actual tangibility. When you go to grab it, it's a hologram. It's a shadow. It's not actually there. But versus the positive side, which is that it's all within you already, and that it's very tangible, and in fact asks us to hold a place of accountability, responsibility, and to honor all of those around us who actually have their own entitled energetic space, circumstances, and material items, because we are birthed and formed in a material space and place. I do think that it's a part of balancing act. It's a part of learning and growth that we learn to use, form in a responsible manner as well, So that which we come into the world with and that which we have within us is what we are entitled to. We've already been given it, hence the fact that you're entitled to it. If we look at a positive definition and we allow actually clarity and light to come through with these words, we can see quite plainly you could never be entitled to anything that doesn't belong to you. It goes against what we set as the definition of entitlement, which is that which is yours, that which is gifted to you, that which is bestowed upon you, that which is through lineage, inheritance, or heritage, that you inherit, that is inherently yours. And I kind of forgot about that. I kind of thought, and I, even in my own sort of spiritually awakened, open eyes, that even I had classic blinders on with the word. And of course I'll kind of link it back into my own process rising up and through poverty consciousness, which if you're interested in that, I've talked a lot about that on my old channel quite a while ago. I'll try to find some podcasts and videos where I've talked about that. I think I did Comprehending Consciousness on that actually, but I'll try to link some below, because the poverty consciousness in itself sort of flips the entire world on its head for us and takes everything away from us, and forces us to match this idea, this presentation of poor, of lack, of nothingness, of worthlessness onto everything that we have. And so basically you would inherently think that you're entitled to nothing because you have nothing. And that's a very, very depreciated, poor place to try to do anything from, and in fact it's not real. It's we've chosen to belittle ourselves. We've chosen to then relinquish those beautiful gifts that you actually have been entitled to, that you actually are gifted, and to not even see them for what they are. And then when you don't see them for what they are, how could you ever even use them in any manner? Chances are if you do try to use them, it's going to come off using them incorrectly, probably in a harmful manner, an abusive manner, just because of the negative space that we're at that point. But when we start to do self-care and love and energy alchemy, light and shadow work, start to promote positivity within our own self and the universe within you, and do that good work for yourself, you realize kind of the abuse and self-harm that used to take place, that wants to implement itself still. The mind control mechanisms become very apparent when you start to work against them, and so that brings up the rearing of the head of all of these kind of distortive ideas that we have, right? And entitlement, of course, it can be very easy to see the negative side only. However, what I'd like to bring up is just sort of what I've been working through over the last kind of week with this word, thinking, and working in my own life, that especially in the phrase, I am entitled to miracles, which is what, lesson 77 is in A Course in Miracles. It's almost like it sets you free. It's such a strange flipping of the coin, because before I would feel entitlement was this like tying down of things. It's like chains linking all of these goods to you, or this position, or this sort of whatever, that it's forced on you, and it's an enslavement into it almost. Yet the truth of it is that those things which we are entitled to, those things which are ours, those things which are mine, that I have been gifted, they can never be taken from me. And they are inherently intangible. They are, although they could be the seeds that birth out, material items that you are, that you get, that you have, I do believe that sort of like the intention behind it, the plan for it, the visual of it, that seeded spiritual layer is what I'm talking about. The thing that can never be taken from us, the thing that is birthed with us, is that contract that comes along with, your life here, your journey here, the choice that you've made to be a part of this. And I know, hey, that triggers some people. Some people say, oh, I didn't want to be here. I never asked to be born here. Oh, what's up with that? To me, that's like a coward's excuse out. To me, that shows you very much that you have a problem looking in the mirror. And that's not a way to go anywhere. That's not a way to start off wanting to go anywhere. You have to be able to look at yourself, to define what you see, to know the tools and the skill set that you have in your belt to prepare yourself for interaction out there in the world. And almost it comes down to, it's irrelevant whether you chose to or not. Because if you just decide for yourself in the here and now, actually, I did choose to come here. I did choose this family. I did choose this lifetime. For whatever reasons, I must have had a reason, because I know myself well enough to know that I do things for a reason, right? And that I know that there's a power in choosing this sort of accountability and responsibility. So whether it's true, quote unquote, or not, you're never going to know. Till the day you die, the book gets closed, the mystery is answered, you meet your maker. Whatever happens to you happens. Until that moment of that conclusion for you happens, everything's up in the air. It's all a guess. It's all a chance. So why wouldn't you choose to pull down and anchor into a foundation for yourself? If it's all if it's all made up, if it's all nihilistic, if it all doesn't matter, if it's YOLO, if it's that one where you think that you make up the whole universe and it's just you in the mind's creating this thing, then that gives you even more purpose to create a firm foundation, to enjoy your time here, the only portion of time that you'll get to experience. Wouldn't you want to make it as steady and reliable for yourself as possible? I mean, I know whichever way I look at it, it tends to come back to that. And so much like trying to get ourselves to see our life in a different way, like that, seeing words that are highly distorted for us, like entitlement, it takes time. It takes a choice. It takes discernment and perspective. It takes contemplation for yourself to go and chew on that thing, to go and observe it, to assess it, and then to accept the responses that you're receiving. Not to try to change them to the responses that you wanted, or even the ones that maybe you didn't want but you expected. It's like, no, relinquish all of that so that you can actually observe and accept what the thing really is for what it is. That's the first real step forward, And for me, choosing to see myself as entitled to miracles, I had to go through all of that, because at first I just hit a block and just thought, entitlement, I don't like that word. And that to me seems like infringement. It to me seems like this overarching, impression of force that doesn't seem organic. But when I, let go of that, sit with it, think about it for a little while to myself, I come back to the one truth. I come back to things that I know are true, and I go and repeat those things to myself, that we are all one, that I am here on purpose, for a purpose, that there is a great creator with a divine vision, and there is a benevolent force and flow which coordinates and balances through everything continuously. When I go and repeat those points of gnosis to myself, and then I think about the word entitlement, and then I ask myself, where does entitlement fit in that flow? To me, it became like that seed. It became like that initial beautiful golden contract that I sort of envision and see that each one of us is bestowed upon and agrees upon, and knows that there are terms and conditions to this embodiment and enlivenment that each one of us gets part of when we're born, when we're part of a lifetime. And to see that entitled document, so to speak, and to know that it's sovereignly made, and that it is signed by myself, my highest self, I thought to myself, those are the things I've agreed to give myself. Those are the gifts. Those are the chances. Those are the seeds, that I have guaranteed, that I have agreed to say, I will grow what may out of this. I will do my best to grow these as best as I can. And seeing that word entitled as a verb that I am in control of, myself, and that I am the one who waters that seed, and that how it grows is on me, it really opened up my eyes and ears and heart to saying, okay, actually I am entitled to things, and to let it feel good to me, and to know that actually I'm not going to ever lay claim to things that are not mine. I don't want to do that. I know in my heart of hearts that I don't want to take from any other. I would never do that, and it then becomes just like any other truth. Just like I would never take a hammer and smash myself in the face, no matter how many times I have a hammer and how many tools, how many tasks I am set to go and make and hammer together. I'm never going to intentionally hammer myself in the face. I can use that same sort of gnosis point to add entitlement to my toolkit, and to know that I'm never going to set myself in a stance where I think I'm entitled to something that isn't one of these beautiful golden seeds within myself that I already know, that are points of gnosis within myself. And that ties into a lot of the workings and teachings that I have been receiving from A Course in Miracles about the term miracle and about what miracles really are. And And then, pulling back the layers on miracles and entitlement together really helped me integrate and really entangle the two words as they should be put together and used co-creatively together. Because miracles, the forefront of that is sort of like it's something impressed upon others. It's this big change that happens out of nowhere for someone else. But in fact, like, this book breaks it down into understanding that that's in fact not what miracle is whatsoever. Miracle is way more simplistic and honest than that. And it's positive commands working correctly is really what miracles are. And so knowing that I am actually granted and given the correct sight and mind to see how things should work, to really see processes that work harmoniously, that are gauged and can't think of the word, assessed and properly made to work in a correct way. And I'm like, I know there's a word for this and I can't think of what the word is, like, mechanically speaking, like a balancing, but to know that there is this balancing happening, and that I'm the one who actually controls that for my life, of course, and putting myself in that seat of accountability to know that those things which I claim title to are mine, and that just like the negative uses the entitlement terms, and I used it at the beginning of this video, sort of like they're not real, they're hologram, you go to grab at them and they aren't actually there. If we ever would try to use or do anything that goes against that, it's not going to work out well. It's not going to give the results that we think that it's going to. And that, again, is a huge, answer and a flag for us to understand that what we think we're deconstructing a distortion to, maybe we're not. Maybe we're adding distortion to that. But when things actually do kind of click in, and those things which you want to grab, you can grab, and those things which you want to change, you can change, and those things within you that you do have a full dominion around, you find a tangible working in these things. That those things you can hold on to forever. Those things you can really work with and offer out. And that's, it really sets the line. It draws a line in the sand for what works and what doesn't. And then when we can lean into and understand that, well, things work because they're part of that highest potentiality. They're part of the best choice timeline that is God's will. That is what should be happening. That is the miracle, is the best potential of all potentials. The miracle is the one greatest potential. It's not to say that there aren't infinite other potentials out there and that they couldn't happen or they don't happen. But when the highest one happens, best productivity, it's a miracle. It is the miracality of it all. It's the miraculous working of all things coming together at their best case scenario for holistically, for the whole picture. Not your best case scenario for what you think your secretory little timeline is and holistically your life might look like. That's not what the big picture is about. Might be what you think your whole picture's about, but in fact we are holistically a part of humankind. Humankind is holistically a part of this world, and we each, have ripple effects on each other. So what we think might be best for us in a self-gratifying, pigeonholed world, when you turn on all the lights, doesn't look so great anymore. But when we peel back the layers, when we work for transparency and honesty, when we turn on our lights brighter, so to speak, we see things more clearly for what they are. And then we can actually see, well, I don't want all of those reasons. I don't want to hold those preconceptions and all these assumptions about a single word, entitlement. Why am I doing that? Why am I going to dive down over here and go feed into this giant system of negativity, which actually would wilt and fall apart if I didn't do that. You know, and not only am I aligning to best service for myself by seeing entitlement as a positive working, and then realizing what I am entitled to, and working with those things to its fullest, not only am I creating my own highest best potentialities, but that holistically matches the positive fertile ground landscape out here where I'm building in third-party reality. And actually the things that build and grow out of here are real and tangible, and do fruit into real services, real retribution, you know, real manifestations that others can actually interact with and share. Wouldn't we want this? Don't we actually want that? And wouldn't we want to put all of our attention and light into things that actually grow like that and can be shared like that, versus even spending 5 seconds, a nanosecond even, thinking about the negative? You know, because again, it's the power of choice. That's where we stand, is in the middle of these things. And as an adept, awakened student, we should be within a capacity, a flexibility, and a strength. You know, we should have already that foundation of wellness, that we can step back out of polarity, that we can step out of our pigeonholed perspectives and look at a bigger picture without alarm bells going off, without having to crawl down into a hole somewhere, without having to shut all the lights off real quick because we're scared of the mess that we just saw when we turned the lights on. You know, this is, no, we are capable, we are fully aware. Let's see how bad it truly is, and let's get to work at it. You know, in contrastly, sometimes you turn the lights on, it's not even as bad as you thought it was. You're like, oh wow, it's actually great. Cool. You know, so for me, turning the lights on in entitlement was a little messy, but has also brought in beautiful clarity and this higher sense of understanding where I stand in the world, and how I want to stand in the world. You know, so if you find yourself sort of triggered, itchy, fighty, you know, annoyed, or whatever the case is about this word, know you're not alone, and that yeah, just like it took me 10 days of crawling through it, thinking about it, to even come up to what I am sharing today. You know, take it with a grain of salt for yourself. Think about it in your own time. If you agree or disagree, love to hear about it. Send me messages, leave comments. If you're finding this on YouTube or BitChute, you can leave some comments for others to see. That's always nice for us to know that there's organic intelligence actually watching and interacting, and that it isn't just dead internet with a bunch of bots and nonsense taking over our places and spaces to share, but that we actually can claim these spaces back, that we can use them for organic positivity, for sharing and caring. So thanks for being a part of that. Thank you for watching my video, for my offering to the collective here. Thank you for your contribution to our collective. We certainly wouldn't be the same without you. Thank you for spending your time with me here today. And yeah, if you're looking for anything more, like I said at the beginning, I'll put some links in the description for like content. And yeah, I hope to catch you next time. Bye for now.